Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today, my friends at Sideshow have asked me to take a look at this, the Hot Toys Artillery Stormtrooper 6-scale figure from The Mandalorian. It's a character that got 6 seconds of screen time, and we've got an awesome 6-scale figure out of it. I love being a Star Wars collector. Anyway, let's see how it turned out.
Greetings. Please log in. Username authorized.
All right, first up as always, we're going to take a look at this box. And it's a standardized format. We've come to expect it from Hot Toys, from pretty much every other company that creates three-dimensional representations of characters from Star Wars. It's mandated by Lucas, or preferred by Lucas, I suppose, was probably a better choice of words. They all feature this gray, super dark gray boundary that creates an angled window into a photograph of the figure on black. It's lovely presentation. I like the standardized way that they do things that way. It just, you look at it from across a room on a shelf in a comic book shop and it just pops out. You know what's waiting for you on the other side of that room. The way that Hot Toys differentiates themselves, of course, as we've talked about before on the show, is they have created this characteristic cigar band. It's a nice way of just setting their stuff apart that also provides them with an opportunity to create more art on the side of the box. In this case, we've got a photograph down here, a secondary photo of the Artillery Stormtrooper. Now notice the warm hues that are dominant in this cigar band. That indicates a family of 6-scale figures within their collection of Star Wars figures. That family being, in this case, the Mandalorian. So if you see a bunch of boxes on a shelf and they all have this tone to the cigar band, you can pretty much guarantee that they're gonna be from the Mandalorian. Clone Wars figure, for example, have more blue tones and like yellow font choices and everything like that. Speaking of font choices, I learned recently that the name of the font that they use for identifying the character in the box is called Trajan. It's a really cool font. I love the look of it. It has an imperialistic sort of vibe to it, sort of reminiscent of the engravings on the side of an ancient Roman building. You can just picture Roman numerals just being used with this font here. It's, like I said, very imperialistic, very Romanesque. Think of the Empire and you think of a font like this. It fits very, very nicely. Spin around to the side. We've got more font stuff, but if you continue around to the back, then you see what I've come to call as bits of legalese, whodunits, and whatnots. Mandatory stuff that needs to be on the outside of the box. I really have always appreciated the way that Hot Toys have kept it minimal. You can see that there's a lot of black negative space going around the outside of it all, and everything is just in this fine, fine font, making it very, very minimalized so that it doesn't just jump out at you. They could have cluttered it up, but they choose not to do that, and I really appreciate it. It's very attractive. Speaking of attractive, you come around to the side and there is one more photograph of the Artillery Stormtrooper there on the side, looking tall, stoic, proud, very imperialistic. I know I'm using that word a lot, but hey, it applies. And that's about all the box has to offer, so let's delve into the inside of it and see what we can see. Okay, so here's a better look at the box, a little bit more full screen look of it so you can actually get a better idea of the color palette of it. You can see that it's very striking, very vivid. That like those aforementioned warm hues really, really pop off of it. It's a gorgeous box insofar as Stormtrooper boxes goes. In fact, I'm going to go on the record right now and just say that I kind of feel like this might very well be the most gorgeous Stormtrooper box that I've seen in my collection. I'd have to go back and look at all of them, and that would take some time, and I'm not going to do it, so I'm not going to do it right now. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this open so that we can see everything on the inside. Now, when you open it, of course, the first thing that gets revealed to you is another photograph. This is great. This is an excellent pose. Look at this. He's all dynamic. He's got a grenade in his hands, thermal detonator, whatever you want to call it. You can see that backpack poking out to the side. Two of the unique items in this box that I'm really looking forward to laying eyes on and playing with are that unique backpack and, of course, the mortar. It's just such a really cool tool. So let's go ahead and get that out of here, move that off to the side. Now, you can also see that I've left the plastic bit over the top, which is something I normally wouldn't do, but in this case it was necessary to show you guys how the tray, the mini tray holding the hands and the grenades, rests on the top. If I had taken the plastic off of it, then this tray would have fallen into it and it just would have looked sloppy. So this gives you a better idea of what it looks like. So let's get rid of that. And you can see that you have a nice assortment of hands. Let's go ahead and get some closer looks on all these right here. You've got this gesturing hand that's very reminiscent, very similar to the one that came with the Stormtrooper squad leader. I did a video on that earlier. You can probably check it out still on Sideshow's website. You've got this gripping hand. That'll be interesting to see what that's meant to hold. As well as a trigger hand, of course. I don't think, no, he does not in fact come with a blaster. So I'm sure that I can find some use for that. And you've got a couple of fists. So all that is going to come in very, very handy, obviously. Let's drop this all back down there. Also, we have a few loose armaments here, a few loose explosives. We've also got a couple of these. We've seen these before. They first came with the Death Trooper 6-scale figure. I think those were black. These have more of a metallic finish to them. That's cool. There's also the characteristic grenade. This is actually a mortar shell for the Artillery Stormtrooper. You can see that there are 3 others that are attached to the backpack up here, but we'll get to that in a minute here. All right, so let's go ahead and move these aside and get this plastic bit out of the box. Now we're going to take this off of here, and again, any opportunity that I have to throw something. There, I'm satisfied. Wow! Wow, that mortar cannon looks really, really awesome. Just check it out. I'm gonna go ahead though and show off this figure first because it really does pop. Again, 6 seconds overall screen time, and Hot Toys gave us a figure of it. I love that about Hot Toys. They don't have any problem whatsoever with doing that. It's just so great. They knew that we would want this in the collection. It's really gonna pop on a shelf, but let's talk a little bit about the details on this. It's very clearly, first instinct is, yeah, you come around to the back here. It's very clearly similar to the Rogue One Stormtrooper armors. Was slightly modified from the original design to allow the actors to more comfortably sit and be more maneuverable while they were wearing the costume. And yeah, it's a very beneficial thing that they brought this to the table. You can also see that the lines, the details on these the line work here on the castings is really, really sharp. Much more real world, and I welcome that. I very much welcome that. There's a piece of lint that we just don't need. The pauldron reads very, very well. Not quite patent leather, yet still quite shiny in the black areas there. And a very, very gorgeous color of yellow. This is like mustard yellow, people. I mean, seriously. Flip around to the back here. All right, this very slight weathering on this. There's not been a whole lot of damage to this armor. He's not seen a lot of combat, or he takes really good care of it, one of the two. Wow, yeah, there's just, I hope those are showing up. Yeah, they're showing up nicely on the monitor there, but you can see that we've got just a few scuffs on the back of the helmet. Nothing over the top. Very subtle. One of the cool things about Stormtroopers is, of course, their pristine appearance. And I'm talking about the ones typically that we would see on the Death Star. When those guys are just like field show ready, whatever you want to call that, they gleam. They absolutely gleam, and they look menacing. So it stands to reason that they would want to keep their armor relatively tidy for the most part. And if they did acquire some damage over the course of combat, then they would probably get that fixed as soon as they could, give it a fresh coat of paint, whatever it took. All right, moving back in, you can see there's even some more little scuffs going on right here. That's kind of awesome. Yeah, the weathering on the painted areas seems to be limited to just the appearance of chipping, which is cool. It just shows that this is actually a paint job over the top of the armor that looks really good. Of course, the weathering increases as you go down and into the area of the ankle. So he's running into quite a few things there. Yeah, gorgeous, looks good. Can't wait to get him on the table and see what he does. Oh yeah, this is what I've been waiting for right here. This mortar, look at it. Look at it. Wow, the little feet even move on it. Look at that. Look at how cool that is. All the detail on it. Again, just like with the armor, there's just minor chipping and weathering to it. So it's still very attractive. I love the little blue and red details right there. Not sure if that's meant to light up in the actual weapon. Let's see, this moves around, that's cool. Look, there's a D-ring. There's a D-ring for it to clip onto something. That's fantastic. Obviously, when we're talking about mortars, then we're talking about adjusting the angle of it to achieve to get your range, to hit your target. You have to move it up and down. Yeah, very, very cool. Let's see. I want to just make sure. Do these move? They do move. That's awesome. They kind of would have to, otherwise they'd look really, really awkward. These little guys do actually move, so you'll be able to get them flat on the surface no matter what position you have the mortar in. So that's cool. Let's go ahead and put that back for now. I'm obviously going to have ample opportunity. Oh, how did I have this? There we go, just like that. Nice and easy. Now let's look at this backpack. Wow. You know what I want to know? What is that? Let's get a little bit closer there for you, but I want to know what that is. Because if these things are the kind of bombs that are going to knock a big boulder loose in Simi Valley, what does that do? Is it a gas canister? Is it more nuclear? Now, just to double check, I want to make sure, and yeah, sure enough, you can put the fourth one in there so that you can actually pose him with all of his mortars in the backpack. Magnets, people, that's fantastic. Obviously, I can tell because there's a padded area here on the back of it to prevent damage to the armor when you put it on his back. That's going to come in handy later. Beneath there is a magnet, and that's how that's going to attach, I predict. Anyway, so you can see that there's a sand base underneath, like a dirt base. It's not the typical sand base that we've seen with Hot Toys before. It's just a print of ground, basically. It's going to enable you to actually place the feet wherever you want, as opposed to having the sculpted base dictate where the feet should go. So that's kind of a welcome shift. I really dig that. Ooh, just noticed, fabric suit looking very much on point, downscales nicely. Anyway, let's get this thing out of the box. I want to put it on the table and try to hit up a posing session. All right, now that we got the figure out of the box, we can begin testing its range of motion, because we're going to have him in a kneeling position. Oh, just knocked over a backpack. We're going to have him in a kneeling position, and that's going to make for, given the nature of armored figures, there are collisions that will occur when you're bending the joints. So you have to consider that when you consider what pose that you're going to hit. Now, as he's going to be using the mortar in the pose that I have in mind, I think that I need to make doubly sure that he's going to be able to hit that kneeling pose. So let's just test this really quick. Now you can see that this guy right here is going to slide out of the way, so that's handy. I'm going to get a decent range of motion out to here, bend that knee, and then let's go ahead and get him right here as well. Now, ways that you can cheat. It's very, very hard to cheat when you're talking about an armored figure. As you can see, I'm already running into issues, but what you can do is to cheat it is to crunch and just sort of have his knee bent out. All right, I'm gonna obviously bring in the mortar here and try to get that where it needs to be. And let's just see here. Yeah, it's very straightforward, and it's almost embarrassing to actually use this as the pose, but this is legitimately how everybody wants to see this figure. So you can already tell where this is going, and I'm gonna want him like looking down. Man, yeah, that's really gonna be cool. To be honest, I didn't expect that this was actually going to work, but typically, I know that if you were gonna have him standing or actually in a combat position here, you would have his backpack on his back, and here's how that works, by the way. Let's just show you what that looks like. You're gonna want those white mortars to be up at the top. And that's cool and all, and we'll get some of that in photography, but for this, I just want to go ahead and have him doing his thing. Let me see here, is this the hand that I want for these mortars? Got a couple of different hands here, but I think that relaxed grip is the one that we want to use. We want him dropping this thing in. I don't know which side is which, but yeah, look at that. Look at how nicely that fits in that hand. That's kind of perfect. Okay, so now how do I want to work this? You can see that I've got the mortar down at like 45, is that 45 degrees? It might be less than 45 degrees. Most mortars, actual combat mortars and mortars in real life, work somewhere between 45 degrees to 80 degrees, depending on the angle of attack. But we're gonna go with fully extended on this one, because that'll be like him aiming for maximum range at 45 degrees. So let's go ahead and push this aside, because he's just gonna have this thing sitting right here. That's where he's gonna be getting his ammunition from, or would it look better over here? I think it would look better on this side, so let's leave it over there for now. I'm just gonna move this stand out of the way so that we have a nice clear view of just the figure and its accessories, because that's really what we want it to look like in the end. What does this hand look like when it's holding the mortar? Not great, but let's see. I'm just going to get him really close on it. And let's get that arm up there, being really careful around this strap. You can see how that strap right there with its little button is attached to the pauldron. You don't want to, there's elastic underneath there that attaches the strap to the pauldron. But, you know, why tempt fate? Let's go ahead and rotate this around so that he's just getting ready to drop that. Just gradually position it in a way that's attractive. You can't just put the figure's hands in the general position and then call it a day. You really need to consider all the angles and how attractive that it's going to be. You've already got the armor working against you. You're having to work with torso stuff. That's a technical term, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I call on this show technical terms. All right, so let's see, that's there. And I'm just gonna rotate this around so you got a better view of it on the camera. But yeah, let's go ahead and lean him down as much as we can. Crunch that torso and then twist it a little bit so that he looks more intent on what he's doing. Let's get that head down so it's actually, the line of sight is actually on the mortar. And then I want to bring this arm up so that he's kind of, I don't want to say caressing it. In fact, I think I'm going to use this hand. Let's go ahead and pop this off. Good, it just came right off the peg. Yeah, let's go ahead and get this back over here. And I'm just gonna have to pick him up and do it because it's tight, it's a tight peg. And there we go. Now, did that mess with my pose? Sure did. That's gonna happen. So I'm just gonna go ahead and have him reaching down and kind of holding or touching the mortar. Let's see. I'm just gonna rotate this around so that you can better see what I'm doing, I hope, if my hands don't get in the way. So I'm gonna get this up. Let's have him just holding it right there. My memory of mortars is basically from World War II movies. Obviously, I don't have any experience with actual live mortar rounds, which wish I did. Might be kind of fun to go to the range someday and just lob some mortars at an empty hillside. But then I start thinking about like innocent animals and everything, and I'm just like, no, maybe that's not something that I want to do. All right, so I'm running into a decision here. I need to make a decision. The decision is either, do I want this hand to be on the mortar, or do I want this hand actually in the act of dropping the mortar into the mortar shell into the mortar itself. Now I'm just gonna bring this foot over the top of that bipod and see if maybe that helps. And it's really all about, I think this pose is always gonna be about tweaking, everyone. Just go ahead and take that and rotate it. Bring that around and then down. Get in there, a little bit at a time. If you move that down, it's putting some pressure onto that mortar, and I don't really feel comfortable with that. Oops, mistakes happen. Come on. All right. Now, one assumes that that mortars in Star Wars are a bit more high-tech than mortars in the real world. So hopefully he doesn't have to really get too far out of the way in order to... I'm just gonna have him, you know what? I'm just gonna have him like he's touching these buttons right here, like making an adjustment. Say maybe he's prepping a secondary charge on in the mortar itself that's actually gonna launch it further. In the show, he's pretty close to Fennec Shand when he starts launching these mortars at her. It's not typically the distance that you'd see a modern Earthbound mortar being used, but I think that's just about got it. I'm gonna kind of get his knee bent just a little bit more. Yeah, and then rotate. I'm gonna rotate this pose around so that you can actually get a better view of it. But yeah, that's pretty much got it. And again, I just want to have this in a place that's going to look really attractive. And yeah, there you go. There's your mortar pose. When I first saw this Stormtrooper variant pop onto the screen during the Mandalorian episode, The Tragedy, my first thought was, ha, new Hot Toy. And here it is, decked out in the all-new colors in a pattern that echoes my Incinerator Trooper. I'm reminded of the first appearance of the Phase 1 clone troops, in which all clones had similar patterns painted onto their armor, but with the different colors indicating rank. The colors here, of course, indicate a specific weapon specialty, which is cool, because each specialty carries with it the promise of new weapons, and which collector out there doesn't love new accessories? For the Incinerator, it was obviously his flamethrower and fuel tank that set him apart. Here, of course, we have that fantastic mortar and the proprietary backpack. It's so cool, and it really breaks up the otherwise repetitive qualities of Stormtrooper collecting. This Stormtrooper figure and the armaments it contains combine nicely in a way that makes it pop in any display, as you can see in this final image. I love it, and it makes me want more. And that's about it for this review. Let me know what you think of the figure in the comments below, and until next time, be good to your plastic. Hey, did you like that video? Be sure to subscribe by clicking that S icon on your screen and ring that notification bell to be notified the next time a new video is posted. If you'd like more information on the item featured in this video, click the link provided under product info. Again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to let your geek side show.